Five, four, three, two, one. I want to say welcome back to Mr. David Anderson. How you doing, sir?
If you just don't call me Dave, like I feel like every time I talk to you, I'm about to be audited.
No, not at all. We're glad to have you back. The people really enjoyed you. The first question I wanted to ask, getting right into it, is that there's a lot of talk online about Roland Martin
Yeah,
and Oprah Winfrey,
certainly.
and what some will refer to as the campaign payment scandals.
Yes.
For those unaware, can you please first clarify what's the issue people have with Oprah's relationship or receiving funding from Kamala Harris?
Well, the first thing is obvious. Oprah's a billionaire with a B several times over. She does not need the money. But again, that's not me pocket watching. Shout out to my boy Pocket Watching with JT. Great channel if you haven't subscribed to it. But here's the thing. Oprah did not get paid a dime to endorse Obama. She didn't get paid a dime to endorse Stacey Abrams. She didn't get paid a dime to endorse Cory Booker or a million and one other people that she's donated her time, energy, effort, and platform to over the past few decades. So for me, I'm trying to look at it and say, if you didn't charge any of these people, why are you charging this particular person? And we all know what the reason is. I believe, and I don't have any tangible proof, but I can look at someone's behavior and deduce that you didn't believe in this woman, but if you're going to do it, okay, well, you're going to pay my production company $2.5 million and you're going to, I'll do an interview with you. And then I want you to go back and watch that interview with Kamala, speaking specifically about Oprah. Oprah looked annoyed so many times in there. Like, if I'm giving you softball questions and people are talking to you about how they lost their house or they had to downsize or whatever, and your first response is, well, I was born in a middle class family and my mother was raising two brown girls to be black. And what does that have to do with this white couple that is telling you that they are PO and too poor to afford the OR? Like, that's problematic. The other part of that is it reeks of impropriety. So, for example, Montel Williams, who we all know was a talk show host and made a killing in the game. He was one of the first black men I see go head up with Maury Povich, Phil Donahue, even Geraldo. He was an amazing dude. I would say about 10, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit early, he was doing infomercials where he was promoting a healthy lifestyle because of his medical conditions and things like that. So he had certain products. If your kids don't like veggies, well, you hide them in the smoothies. And remember that? But if you notice at the bottom, it said, this is a paid commercial advertisement. This is an infomercial, so on and so forth. When you're being paid and you're looked at as a respectable member of the media or a respected member of the media, and you don't disclose that, it becomes an issue because it looks like impropriety. And then the FCC says that not only are you supposed to disclose it, but you're also supposed to make sure that you're not leaning into such advocacy where you're trying to lopsidedly poison the electorate. And that's the thing that got people looking at Oprah sideways, and it's darn sure the thing that's gotten people looking at Roland Martin sideways. Because I can tell you from experience, see, we can talk in the comments about what you think and how you feel, and you're entitled to your feelings, but you're not entitled to your own facts. As a person that has spent, I would say, a good 70% of his life in mainstream media, I'll give you a more recent example. When I produced the Ricky Smiley Morning Show and we put them into syndication, we had to deal with the FCC because you're dealing with a mainstream actual media outlet. And stay with me here because I want to be clear. When you have a candidate on, whether they're in a primary, whether they're in a general election, you have to, according to the FCC, when you're licensed by the Federal Communications Commission, you have to offer equal time to their opponents. If you do not, you are in violation of FCC mandates.
And that's Trump's issue with NBC with the lawsuit. He's saying because
Absolutely.
they did the SNL skit and other stuff, and he feels that he didn't get
Absolutely.
equal airtime.
Because fair is fair, because they had the same issues when Trump did Saturday Night Live. Go back and look when Trump did Saturday Night Live, the Democrats was hollering the same thing. And so when it came to Ricky's situation, we would have Barack Obama on, but then I would have to reach out to the Clinton campaign, and I had to reach out to John Edwards' campaign. I reached out to God rest his soul. Oh, help me! I can see him clear as day. Oh gosh, You know who I'm talking about. Oh, he died. Oh my gosh, it's John McCain. Reach out to John McCain's campaign. And if they decline, cool, but I still had to keep a record of it so that nobody can say, no, there's some equal time stuff.
Oh, it's just the fact of, all right, whether they accept it or not, that's not on you, but the fact that
You have
reached
to
out
offer.
and provide the opportunity.
At what point did you hear Roland Martin say he'd offered equal time?
All right, please break down the different levels of media you told me about earlier.
So there is mainstream media, which is MSNBC, CBS, ABC, what have you, right? Then there's independent media, which is, anybody with a microphone, anybody with a blog, podcast, things of that nature. And then you have what is being called Mindy, which is mainstream independent media, which means you're not exactly the big boys, but you're not just a regular person in their basement with a roadcaster. You are a person that or a company that has a certain level of pull. So you would fall under that. All hip hop would fall under that. Media takeout would fall under that. Roland Martin definitely falls under that. And so when you are positioning yourself in one way, like Roland Martin is, oh, well, I'm a media company and bit. And, you're not mad when Charlemagne does bit. And it's like, okay, dude, either you're a mainstream media company or you're a Mindy. You can't be both whenever it suits you. And the truth of the matter is you did not offer equal time. You did not disclose the fact that you got paid. You constantly complained that you weren't getting any money. And my whole thing is, if you want candidates to pay black media outlets, as you said, then you also have to tell me why you would not take Trump money. Because by that same token, iHeartRadio, Radio One, all of these other outlets have taken money from both campaigns to advertise. You never positioned your interview with Kamala Harris as an advertisement, and then you were walking around like you were her press secretary. Well, see here, she's going to be in this place, and then she's going to be in that place.
All right, the question I have for you now is, right, how would you go about, like, I understand the balance, but if you didn't do the balance, and I think he's an extreme case because he really went super hard with the Democratic.
Certainly.
But how would you disclose this is a paid interview to the public? You just put it up there, or how does it work?
Like anything else, if you watch The View and they're doing a story on Disneyland, they will say that ABC is owned by Disney. Disney is our parent company. All right. Right. This time was paid for. You could put it in a small disclaimer, just like they do for herpes medication. At the bottom,
something up.
You got to put something up
legally.
Yeah, but he didn't do that. And until the FEC, put out the filings of where all the money went,
it would have been silent.
It would have been silent, but everybody knew it was going to come out in the wash. And if it didn't come out in the wash, it was going to come out in the rinse.
I think too, like listening to people and just reading comments, people could tell when you're like kind of going too hard in a particular direction.
Right. You're being a paid show.
Yeah. So like on here, we have people from all that. I think we do a good job of balancing both sides of stuff.
Certainly.
But other people can tell, like, man, you're going a little too hard on this. So it must be some affiliation.
Absolutely. And the thing of it is, if you have your person, that's fine. But don't call yourself a journalist. That's it. Because journalism means that you're to be objective. The reason that Walter Cronkite was effective for 50 years, while Dan Rather was effective for 50 years, it was just the facts. And that's the way it is. That's not what's happening now. Everybody's got opinion pieces or think pieces. When I watch The View, for example, when I look at it today, and I can only look at it in clips because it drives me insane how tripped out they are. And everybody's going to die and it's so bad. That's not what Barbara Walters wanted for that show. Barbara Walters is an actual journalist. She said for the first 10 years of that show, I had this idea for a show. Different women from different walks of life and different points of view. Now, everybody on that show is left-leaning and is crazy. And, oh, Donald Trump's so evil. But y'all, half of them were up there talking about how good of a man Donald Trump was, how much of a friend he was, how Donald Trump didn't charge Whoopi Goldberg to be in her movie. So
do you think it's a funding issue? Is it a sponsor issue?
All of the above.
Yeah.
I think people get paid. I can't trust somebody who gets paid 7 figures to push a certain agenda. And that certain agenda, if you notice, that certain agenda has become so pervasive, there's going to be a pushback. Scientifically, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're going so far to the left, the right is going to push back. And that's the thing. You act like you have people on that show who have contrarian points of view, but if they did, then why is it anytime they talk, you're ready to go to break? right? Anytime they say something that you don't agree with, you cut them off and say, oh, it's racism, it's misogyny, and this, that, and the third. And those things do exist, and you have to acknowledge them. But if somebody has an opinion different than yours, you're ready to yell and scream, and this, that, and the third. And then you'll go so far as to ignore facts to a point where you had candidates threatening to sue ABC. That's why you keep seeing on The View, they keep having to read these legal notes. So that's a problem.
I think what we're seeing is a reflection of society on a whole, though. You can't have people can't accept an argument that doesn't align with their belief system. Like the default mostly is aggression, getting loud, sometimes violence.
Right.
So I think we're intellectually immature collectively to where we can't have a conversation and disagree, and it has to blow up in this different thing.
Right. But my whole thing with that is, sure, people, it's a sensitive subject. That's why they tell you in entertainment, don't ever talk about religion or politics, because it's very divisive. It's always been that way. Here's my issue. We live in a country where you can vote for whoever you want. That's your business. That's why they do it in a booth that's private. You also have the right to wear whatever paraphernalia you want to wear, do whatever you want to do, protest peacefully, all that kind of good stuff. I just saw a thing this morning on YouTube where there was a black woman who was a Trump supporter who got punched in the jaw by an old white woman who said, I can't understand why somebody black or brown or of color would ever vote for Donald Trump. And her next thing was to punch this woman in the jaw. And that Karen got arrested. But my whole thing is, like, you're trying to tell people that your side is the right side and you don't know how to improve your argument. So you resort to violence, you resort to name calling. You're doing what the late Kevin Samuels would refer to as sign language: shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right with a side of violence.
You're bringing up some great points. And what I'm noticing also is that politics has taken the place of religion as that place of solace, right? So before, it's like you look to whoever you deal with, right, for that kind of comfort. But now the saving grace is politics. Have you noticed that? Or
yeah, I think politics has always been akin to religion, right? The difference is a lot of you go back 50, 60 years, you could go to the black church and you could organize because it was a safe haven, it was holy ground, it was respected. Now, not so much. If you're going in, you're going because, well, pastor got a good message and, I'm going to pay my tithe, so on and so forth. And I also think that people can believe in politics a lot more than they can believe in a God, where the only thing shiny in most densely populated black neighborhoods is the church, the weed spot, and the liquor store. So why am I going to give you 10% when you rolling? And I'm trying to figure out how I still have more month at the end of my money. I mean, show me how the black church is effective by and large. I don't want exceptions. I want the rule. I want the standard.
All right. I have a question here, right?
Sure.
Do you believe we will witness the end of Title I schools in America? And for those unaware, Title I programs provide supplemental financial assistance to school districts for children from low-income families or low-income areas, right? There is a plan. I hear numerous things. It's kind of mixed and muddled.
Yeah.
I'm hearing one thing or I'm reading an article saying that when this is implemented, they're going to cut federal funding to any school teaching critical race theory. They're going to end teaching tenure, create new credential body to certify teachers. This is one thing I can actually agree with. Kick out of control troublemakers.
Yeah.
We could talk about that a little more. Another article is saying that they're going to allow teachers to carry concealed firearms, and a bunch of other stuff, right? But the question I have for you, do you think they're really going to end Title I?
I certainly hope so. Here's why. Again, we can argue your feelings, we can argue your thoughts, but you cannot argue facts. I am the son, nephew, brother, and father of public school teachers. We can have a conversation about anything you want, but I've seen this my entire life, right? Not only that, for shits and gigs, I went to the worst high school in America, Martin Luther King High School, class of 95. I was a class president, and it wasn't that hard to become class president.
You just had to sit there and chill.
It wasn't even that. It was like people just want to run. Yo, I'm cute. I'm the captain of the football team. Yeah, and I'm like, no, here's a 5-point plan. We're going to do this and that and that and this. And they was like, yeah, we don't want to do none of that. Let Dave do it. But again, when has Title I benefited Black American students by and large?
Never.
Never.
I taught at a Title I school.
Thank you.
Continue.
So now let's also look at the fact that people are so hyped up on talking points and not hyped up on possibilities. So let's deal in facts. Fact number one, the U.S. Department of Education has an annual budget of $90 billion. Why are there so many schools folding in Chicago, in Baltimore, in Atlanta, in Philadelphia? Why? $90 billion? And no, we know that because this is another thing people don't understand. The states primarily control the schools. The U.S. Department of Education just doles out money. Right. Now, the other part of that is, have you ever seen the movie Lean On Me? Who's the good guy in that movie?
It's not Joe Clark, is it?
Joe Clark is the villain.
Yeah.
You know who the good guy was? Lynn Thigpen's character. You want to know why? She was a concerned parent that kept coming to the school board like, yo, what are y'all doing? We need to get this dude out. He focusing on a test. My kids can't eat no test. Now, we have become a society of test takers and standard hitters, right? Because what it is for every kid, on average, we're looking between $30,000 to $50,000, depending on where you are, as long as you're in there. That's why those truancy laws are so important. That's why attendance is so important. It's not about creating great thinkers, because if you wanted to create great thinkers, then you'd have to go ahead and abolish the Rockefeller means of school, which has never, ever changed in the past 100 years. So now that we understand that, and we also understand that the American Federation of Teachers, which is the teachers union that oversees all the other teachers unions, are in bed with the state and local governments, as well as the federal government, you have to understand that this is not about educating your child. It's about creating a bunch of automatons that do not know how to think for themselves or process information.
Yeah, I want to jump back to the origins of education. I think people need to focus on the origins of public education in this country.
Certainly.
I think we moved away from that. It's not to have some great intellectual person.
Not at all.
So they wanted to create a person that could fit the worker that they needed at the time. A factory worker.
Factory.
Like basic, be able to process basic information and just stand there, don't argue with the boss too much and chill.
That's it.
We're still living in the same... It's not funny. We're still using that same approach to education in a totally different environment.
Certainly.
I don't know. I know people are real strong, especially with their education. To me, public education is just daycare at the end of the day.
That's all it is. It's
Daycare
and daycare.
And cheating. Cheating from the teachers, cheating from the admin, and cheating from the students.
Right.
Because, and maybe I was in a distorted demographic, so I'll use what I was exposed to.
Certainly.
Majority of the kids that I taught could not read on nowhere near grade level.
Right.
Like nowhere near. If they were 11th grade, maybe they're in 4th grade. And that's the vibe. That's the reality of it.
Right.
Pushed out, whatever. What's the proper term when you just graduate kids?
Passing them through. Passing them through. Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with right now.
Certainly.
And this is the tricky part with the finances. Admin are getting paid to do nothing, bro.
Certainly.
They are getting paid to do nothing.
If you want, because there are people who say, oh, Dave, you can't be an entrepreneur. You don't want to be an entrepreneur? Fine. Here's your hustle. Go to a 4-year university, right? Spit out everything because you're taught to regurgitate anyway. You've been doing that since preschool. Then what I want you to do, after you graduate with your 4-year degree, make sure you're getting your teacher certificate, then go back and get a principal certificate, and then you can make multiple 6 figures and not have to do anything other than make sure that the school doesn't burn down.
When did schools start having 5, 6 principals? I remember it was one principal, maybe assistant principal, and a dean.
When they decided to start merging schools together, regardless of cultural norms. So, for example, there is a bunch of, in Philly, they closed down Germantown High School, which is Martin Luther King's crosstown rival, right? Every Thanksgiving, there was a Martin Luther King Germantown game for years. And they put all those kids from Germantown in the same school.
You know they did that in East Orange, New Jersey. They had East Orange High and Clifford J. Scott. No one gets together on that side of town. They put them in the same high school.
Right.
I'm not sure if it's still a war going on now, but initially when it did, it was just nonstop fight.
Right, but of course, because it's a powder keg. See, human beings are always going to be tribal because we're animals. It's what we do. We stick with our own kind. We have tribalism in everything. We get Stacy and Michelle don't like all them chicks over in accounting because that's just how it is. So when you put people in there and then you say, you know what, we can do all this, but you know what, you don't want to lose your job. You don't want to lose your job. So we'll have a bunch of co-principals, right? So they do that in order to save money and then make more money in the long term, but they don't care nothing about them kids. And then you can't say, well, what's it going to? Their physical fitness? We're the fattest we've ever been, right? Are you saying it's going to the nutrition? No, you sold that out to Domino's Pizza, Pepsi, and Burger King. So where's the money really going? It's going to all the bureaucracy and the fat cats, but nobody wants to have that conversation because it's not possible. Now let's get back to your initial thing, which was let's talk about the root of a thing, because you cannot distinguish the root of a thing from the fruit of a thing. So if John D. Rockefeller and his conglomerate of individuals created what we now know as the U.S. Department of Education to make sure that they had enough workers to fill these factories that they were building in order to create what we now know historically as the Industrial Revolution, they beat all the creativity out of you. That's the goal.
Facts.
Now, as a teacher, you'll attest that you are there and telling kids you can be whatever you want to be. But even you, as nice and as kind as you are, makes you a bit of a hypocrite, because you want to know why. If a kid has something to say, what do they have to do? Okay, if they want to go to the bathroom, what do they have to do? When it's time to go outside for a recess for the kids who are at elementary school, what do they have to do?
Get in line, limited time.
Right, in size, order, efficiently, and walk out. They can't express themselves. You have to sit down, and if you don't sit down, because, you know, boys, and even Dr. Umar Johnson will tell you, boys are wired differently than girls. We got to get up. We got to have movement breaks. No, but you tell these kids that they can be anything they want, but then you're punishing them for being individuals. The system is set up to create great workers, not great thinkers. If you think anything outside of what you're programmed to think, you're going to lose.
That's what I'm saying. People still say that now. I don't think the system is created to create great workers anymore. It's like that's already done. You get what I'm saying? Because
to a certain extent, yeah.
As I said, I only could speak about the environment I was in. So maybe that's extreme. It's not a broad thing. And I know there are different levels and different demographics, of course, right? But like, I was telling a brethren the other day, so he was at one of the fast food spots, and he was saying how the person messed up their order.
Certainly.
And I've been trying to explain to people that these kids never learn how to process not only reading comprehension, but verbal information. So a lot of issues you have when you're out at stores with people in the public, these are the kids who can't read in school.
Certainly.
Or they didn't have repetition of processing information.
Right.
You probably said chicken, they heard steak.
Right.
You said onions, they heard something else, because they just in that school environment, they didn't learn that skill to function in society.
Right.
That's like my biggest concern with schools.
Right. So here's the thing. No, when I say great workers, I don't mean great workers as in they're going to be top achieving workers.
Or even functioning workers.
I don't even need them to be functioning. I just need a body that's not going to burn the situation down. That's it. I just need a body, right? I can get them to be good enough. I'm not shooting for perfection here. Then you also have to look at, even with that, entrepreneurs and big industry will always find a way to move the needle forward regardless of what the government throws at them. Give me a little latitude on this. So you know how everybody's talking about, oh, well, everybody needs to have the minimum wage at $15 an hour. Okay, numbnuts. Here's how that works for a small business like you or I, right? That means we're going to have to cut bodies because we can't do that. It's impossible.
Not realistic.
But McDonald's can do that. And here's what they'll do. They'll spend $30,000 and get a Flippy. For those of you who do not know what a Flippy is a machine that will drop fries, flip burgers, put them together wholeheartedly, bing, bang, boom, right? They'll get a moppy, which will come and robot mop the floor. And then there's one person, and all he's doing is working the drive-through. So now you've gone from having a workforce on average per shift of 5 people down to 1. That one person gets paid $15 an hour, and 4 people per shift lose their job. So you go from 15 people to 3. Because you wanted minimum wage. My whole thing is, if you really want to fix education, if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to focus on something, stop advocating for your limitations. When you fight for your limitations, then you get to keep them. What you should be pushing for is a way to make sure that our children and the workforce that is here has what I call maximum skills, things that can't be taken away from you. When I was in school and there were kids who just couldn't do it for whatever reason, maybe they were bad, and when I say bad, I mean behavior problems, but they wouldn't be in school anymore. You know where they would go? They would go to Job Corps, and then they would get a skill. And then it could go be a welder, a plumber, a mechanic, a technician. They could do something that would allow them to thrive in a society that only rewards people in that environment based on how well they can regurgitate the same BS information that hasn't put a dime in anybody's coffers or a piece of food on anybody's plate. So we got to get ourselves to a point where we realize that the fix is in and the system is set up so that you become dependent upon it. And the problem with that now is that this country has set itself up for an internal 9/11.
I once heard you mention the internal 9/11 that may happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before we even get there, I've been talking to numerous restaurant owners, and I even spoke to a farmer down here in South Jersey, and they were telling me that if the plan is executed to remove immigrants, as they said, they're not sure how they will be in business. As I said, this is a small demographic. These are people I have spoken to.
Certainly.
Do you feel that restaurants and farms in America can continue if many people are deported?
Of course it can. Because we were doing fine before the 10 million people came over here in the past 3.5 years. So what are we talking about? Where was all this smoke for getting rid of illegal immigrants when the person who was once called the porter-in-chief sent 2 million packing and didn't do it cleanly, didn't do it systemically? Oh, because he was black and that was okay. What I'm about to say is going to piss people off, so just get ready for the comments, and you might be flagged for this. I'm gonna need black people to hold their own nuts. I just am. My grandfather was the son of a sharecropper and the grandson of a slave who were all peanut farmers. My paternal grandmother grew up on a dairy farm in South Carolina. So I'm trying to understand how all of a sudden we act like black people, black farmers, don't have the skills when there have been plenty of black farmers who have been crying out for subsidies since before Martin Luther King got killed. But what we want to do is shame millionaires and billionaires who are using illegal immigrants for whatever their particular devices and vices are. But now it's an issue because, oh, well, what about the restaurants? What about the Venezuelans that shut down Chicago the other day? What about the illegal Colombians who are coming over here and beating folks up in the head? What about the illegal immigrants in New York City that are terrorizing people in Central Park after dark? We got no conversation for that, and we're worried about all that? Are you serious? And then, by the way, how is it in this country we have people who were born here, don't have another country to go to because this is the only home they've ever known, who have been in this country since before Columbus, who now have to let other people come here illegally because they didn't want to follow the rules. They didn't want to go through the asylum process. They didn't want to go through the 7 to 10 years it takes to become a citizen. And they get food, they get education, they get shelter, and they get job training, while people who look like you and I, who built this country, can't get none of that because we don't qualify. We make too much money, this, that, and the third. Make it make sense. I'm gonna need black people to hold their own nuts. This ain't your fight. It ain't. They're not here legally. Ain't you the first ones hollering out how oppressed you are. Ain't you oppressed enough? Is this not oppressing you financially? Is this not oppressing you educationally? How are you worried about what restaurants will function when you're not even worried about how you're going to function while your resources are limited? If in fact, how many children do you have? You have one. Where do you have two? If you have two. But I will tell you, I went from having 1 to 2, and I can tell you there's a difference. So imagine having 2 million illegal immigrants in this country versus having an additional 10 that we can account for. That's not the number that's the actual number. That's the number we can account for.
Facts.
So you're trying to tell me that doesn't have an effect on the economy? Surely you jest. But again, with the education system being what it is, I can see how you might not understand that. So yeah, no, restaurants will be just fine. They were fine 3.5 years ago with just 2 million illegals. They were fine when Trump was building the wall and closing the border. They'll be fine when they get the heck up on out of here. Like, I don't understand why historically, black people got into feminism. How'd that work out for us?
Not good.
How did it, by and large, because there'll be some civil rights benefited fat white women who wanted to work at Pan Am. Civil rights benefits people who have a different sexual orientation. We're always the last on the totem pole, but we're always the first to get our heads beat in for the cause. Why are we always putting ourselves in the line of fire for other people? Like, we wanted to fight in World War II, and they wanted to put us on the front lines. They wanted us to fight in the Civil War, and they put us on the front lines. We're constantly on the front lines, but on the back end, we're getting... I need somebody to explain to me why everybody else's needs and wants and rights are more important to our people by and large than our own rights are to us. I don't get it. I got nothing.
I was reading an article, right? And I said one of the things they want to do, they want to ban many government agencies from collecting racial or demographic data. Not only do they want to discontinue the practice on mortgage applications, government hiring, business loans, but at least 15 of their proposals suggest they start with deleting the term sexual orientation and gender identity. If this takes place, do you think Black people will benefit from the ban on government agencies and businesses asking applicants about their race?
Absolutely. Because now you have to deal with the one thing that this country doesn't want to deal with, especially when people don't have the skills. It's called a meritocracy. I want the best. I do not want a person just because they're Black. If I can find the best and that person happens to be Black, phenomenal. 96% of my workforce, 96% of my executive team are Black, specifically Black women, right? I have people on my team who are not Black, but that's 4%. 96% were the best of the best of the best that I could find. That's how it lays out for what I do. By that same token, how much do you love your family? Have you ever been on a plane with your family? Okay. Do you know the percentage of commercial airline pilots that look like you? Look like me?
I don't see that much.
Less than 1.
Yeah, because I don't really see that much.
But if you go and you look at some place like these major airlines, whether that's Delta, Southwest, whatever the case, and I'm just saying arbitrarily, I'm not holding them to this particular standard, but there are some airlines that say that they want to hire more Black pilots. But if only 1% are hitting the bar to qualify and you're hiring more, then you're putting everybody's life in danger by hiring them based upon their race. That's why a meritocracy needs to happen. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care if I identify as a Mighty Morphin Power Ranger. My pronouns are Mastodon. Like, are we serious right now? I want the best. Remember when you had to be the best? Right. Do you remember there was a time, and I listen, as a person who used to be 500 some odd pounds and I'm sitting here 249, I can remember how much I hated in gym class the physical fitness test because I'd never passed it. I was a fat ass my whole life, right? I knew I wasn't going to make the team. When Belfield Recreation Center had a intramural recreation center citywide baseball program. I made third string right field. And you know why I was happy about that? Because there were 18 other people who never made the team. I was good enough to be third string right field.
You actually made that position.
I made that position. You know what we do now? Oh, let everybody win.
Don't get me started with that. We'll continue.
So at some point, why in the world, how many times have you in your lifetime, not me, not anybody in the comments, you in your lifetime, how many times have you talked to somebody who looks like you and I, and they say, man, I didn't get that gig because I'm Black?
A lot.
So if we eliminate that and it's just a blind situation, would it not stand to reason based on numbers that you'd have a better shot based on, wait for it, maximum skills?
But the question I say in regards to blind situation, is it still blind? Because we do have addresses, we have names, and there's still kind of hints of your demographic.
Certainly, but then that's discrimination, and that's when you can sue them back to the Stone Age. But see, y'all only want to sue when somebody gets shot. Y'all only want to sue when you know it'll make the papers. You only want to sue when it'll interest Ben Crump. And that's no diss to Ben Crump. I think the work he does, has a place. Look what he did for Botham Jean's family. They got 98.6 million. So I'm not knocking that. What I'm saying is, be litigious if you can prove that somebody is discriminating against you. Because I got that same amount of smoke for Wells Fargo for their discriminatory practices.
Predatory practice.
Yes, predatory. When it comes to business loans on Black people, they got a problem. When it comes to mortgage rates, they got a problem. When it comes to commercial lending, they've got a problem. When it comes to giving people credit, they got a problem. Big time. There's laws for that. You can sue for that. So now it just becomes enough of, hey, from a number standpoint, y'all should have more
balance in here.
Yeah, based upon the way that the country is made up, the numbers should math that out 9 times out of 10.
It should reflect the true demographic of the country.
Because if we're dealing with just numbers and skills and how things would fall, then that's how it would be. But you know what we won't do? We won't sue. What we'll do is this. Hashtag I want justice. Hashtag let's change our avatar. Hashtag let's boycott for one day. Just like y'all did Gucci, and as soon as Dapper Dan got his job back, y'all forgot about that.
The whole day, half a day,
whole day, half a day. Y'all let, and this is no diss, but y'all let T.I. and some kid who used to be a used car dealer tell y'all to black out your avatars for one day to protest. I don't even remember what the hell it was at this point. But these symbolic protests, they can wait you out. And then if you're going to protest effectively, make sure you have an ask and make sure you hold people accountable. It's people literally filing class action lawsuits behind whether or not this ingredient in this product has been pushed as natural and it wasn't. The reason we don't get taken seriously is because we don't do the things to make people hurt. There's only 2 things that this country understands. It's the loss of revenue or the loss of blood. And most of y'all won't bust a grape in a fruit fight, but you can start pulling your money away. But will you do that? No. So miss me with the bullshit. Sorry. That's it, and that's all. Yeah, no. If you want to play on an equal field, then play on an equal field. Get your weight up and not your hate up. Like, go get it. You so big on how educated you are. All right, prove it. Prove that that degree you got that you got is worth more than the 37 cents it costs to print it and put it on parchment paper that you spent 4 years, 6 years, 8 years telling everybody you so smart to do. Back it up with your skills. But can you? Because then you have to look at the fact that, again, the American education system is a failure. Here's what I mean. 27% on any test. Failing. Is it not? Is that not abject failure? Isn't that like an F minus minus? Okay, so if only 27% of people with bachelor's degrees are working in the field in which they majored, that means 73% aren't. So that's 73% of the American educated public post-high school with a bachelor's degree not working in the thing they spent tens of thousands of dollars in.
Hundreds.
Oh, I was trying to be nice.
Bachelor's degree about $100,000 right now.
Yeah, that's about right. Because I know I paid $186,000 for my daughter's degree. Yeah. So
bachelor's, bro, that's kind of cool to tell you the truth, you know?
Yeah. You know?
It's scary.
It is very scary. But here's the thing that nobody else talks about. Why haven't we sued the federal government? Why haven't we sued Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? And this is what I mean. Thank God that was him. Why haven't we sued the federal government? Why haven't we sued Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? And here's what I mean. Every time the U.S. government and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and whichever government student loan organizations you would get a loan from say, this is the amount we're going to raise the availability of funds for a student to go to school. Why is it that every major college and university, with very few exceptions, will go right, just right, like literally right under that cap? But the quality of education hasn't gotten any better. Most of the buildings are already paid for. Most of them are paid for by endowments and donations. They're already subsidized by the state, most of them that are state schools, not the private ones, so miss me with the semantics. So at what point do we not realize that this is not about making people better or equipping them with skills that will take them to help their families generationally improve from a financial standpoint? We love talking about generational wealth. You got people in silk pajamas talking about, oh, you can do anything you want. Look at me. Why aren't we suing them? Because this is clearly fraudulent. It's clearly fraudulent. It's a scam. But no, so y'all want to do that because if you then admit that you know that it's a scam, then you have to admit that you were a sucker.
You know what's wild, man? My entire livelihood, my ability to provide for my family, none of these skill sets came from school.
No.
I will say this, though. I played college basketball. things I learned with that, I
Yeah.
applied to my life. But in regards to the curriculum that I learned in school, the information I received from professors, none of that has been applied to my livelihood.
No, I was already a communicator when I was 9 years old. So me
Yeah,
going
so I
to,
have to be truthful.
yeah, no. But I will say this. You know what I did learn? I learned how to market. I know how to throw a great party. I learned all those things outside of the classroom. I learned social norms and hierarchies, things I didn't get as a kid because I was off. Like every time I was in a TV station, radio station, red carpet, I was around a bunch of adults. I'd never really been around my peers. Yeah, I went to school, but I'm in class for the most part. I ain't rocking with y'all. So I had to learn how to operate. So everything I learned in college, I learned outside of the classroom with very few exceptions.
And I will say this in defense of school, it does
Certainly.
provide you an environment to learn those things.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
If you want to. It's not forced. Like you have to go out there and do it yourself.
Right. But I argue in an information age, I can learn all that stuff right here.
It's different now.
And
It's
then,
different.
yeah, but again, if we're going to be truthful, the internet came out in 1991. By 1995, the majority of the information that you would have needed to be successful was already out and free. School lost the monopoly on access to information.
Big time.
So we're at the almost 30th anniversary of school in its traditional form being the dominant force when it comes to the ability to access information. If you got Harvard professors teaching for free online,
courses online, like real courses,
real courses
online. Yeah,
what I need you for?
True.
To be in debt. And then here's the thing:
watch it at your own pace too.
Right. And then here's the thing: if all things are being equal, then why is it you won't give me that money to start a business if you really care about how society looks and what's happening with society and how that goes?
That sounds like equity. We deal with equality.
Oh,
I can't get no business loan for it.
Symbolism. I want to show up and look like I'm important and look like I'm involved. I fill a quota.
Yeah, no, fine. I read numerous articles, right? And they were saying that Trump said he plans to roll back ambitious rules restricting power plant emissions that were designed to curb global warming and boost public health. Another one spoke about how the EPA estimated greenhouse gas standards will prevent up to 1,200 premature deaths, a bunch of hospital visits, asthma, which is a very, 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 very big thing, right?
Certainly.
How do you believe Trump's policies about the environment will impact Black people?
I think some of them absolutely suck, but the truth of the matter is, if we're going to talk about Trump's policies, we need to talk about Biden's policies. We need to talk about Obama's policies. We need to talk about Bush's policies.
Government policies.
Right. Because my whole thing is, since 1991, we've had this fascination with the environment, right? And we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this. Half of y'all don't recycle. Most of y'all don't compost. If you got dogs, you don't let them poop and then create a mulch that could be beneficial to your garden. Most of you don't grow your own vegetables. Most of you don't go to a farm and get your beef. So, and then on top of that, most of you are too bougie to carpool even when you use Uber, which would also cut down on emissions. So please miss me with your outrage. Now, here's the thing that I have an issue with. I am really big on things that people don't like to talk about. There is a place in Louisiana called Cancer Alley, and it's miles and miles and miles of power plants and all types of factories that have just been dumping all types of chemical waste and polluting the environment, and people are literally getting cancer, and we've done nothing about that. And then here's the thing: we are so #minded that we're no practically good, right? There have been plenty of organizations that have tried and are trying to, especially when it comes to Black people, get the word out about the importance of regulating the environmental practices or lack thereof of big business. For example, Climate Revival. Have you heard of Climate Revival? My point exactly. Climate Revival is run by Reverend Yearwood of the Hip Hop Caucus and was co-founded by Antonique Smith, the young lady who played Faith Evans in Notorious, right? And they go around city to city and start pointing out, hey, these are the things that are happening. This is the work that we're doing. We've got to be more upfront on that. But how many Black people contribute to any environmental lobby? Do you really care? Right? Are we cool with all the pollution that happens when we go out here and we're talking about from all these entrepreneurs like, go get a G-Wagon so you can write it off. Where's the pushback for that? So you can't be a person that compartmentalizes when, one, you're not putting your finances and you're not putting your footwork towards fixing the problem. I don't see none of y'all Negroes lobbying for it. I don't see none of y'all saying, look, this is what's taking place in my environment. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to need y'all to put some respect on Eddie Murphy's name. I'm going to need you to respect that man. I'm going to need y'all to apologize to that man and give that man his flowers, because he tried to show you in The Distinguished Gentleman. If you've never seen it, I suggest right now you find it, you buy it, you rent it, you do whatever you got to do. But you need to watch that movie for two reasons. Number one, he showed you how corrupt the federal government is, right? He also showed you how simple the voting mind of the electorate is, because his name was Thomas Jefferson Johnson. There was a guy who died named Jeff Johnson. So he got rid of the Thomas, he got rid of the Urson, and just ran on Jeff Johnson and said he was the name you know, and he won by a landslide because we don't pay attention. Then he was talking to Lane Smith's character and says, listen, where are you on sugar? He's like, well, where should I be? Well, if you're for sugar, I got money from you for the sugar lobbies. If you're against sugar, then I got money for you when it comes to the corn syrup people and the environmental people. Either way, we're getting paid. This guy is going to buy, nobody wants to buy, 2,000 copies of your book, but that's what they do. It makes no sense that Nancy Pelosi is arguably the greatest, trader in the history of the stock exchange, but you send Martha Stewart to jail for insider trading. And if this woman was so swift, how are you so savvy when it comes to stock picks, but you're not that savvy in helping the federal government? I'm trying to understand. So when it comes to the environment, y'all only act like you care. Y'all ain't cared about the environment since Whoopi Goldberg and LeVar Burton was saying, we need Captain Planet. Our powers combined. So to me, you don't know who the black people are who are trying to influence the change we need in order to stop these cancer clusters from happening, in order to regulate the pollution that's happening. We're not. Do you have a filter on the tap in your house? Cool. You're among the 5% of black Americans who do. You know what most black folks do? They go in and buy bottled water. You remember there was a time we could drink from the hose and be just fine. It was real cold, because it had to be, because we was out all day. Because when you got up after you did your chores, where'd you have to go? Outside. And you couldn't come back till when? Till the street lights came on. Nah. Don't tell me you want a better environment when you do nothing to change the environment.
I want to ask, do you think it's a situation where there's just a lack of education, a willing ignorance, or not just caring?
It's a lack of willing ignorance and not just caring. All the education you need is right here. You can go down south, with very few exceptions, like I said, you got Cancer Alley, but you can go down south and you can taste the difference in the air. When I came home from Texas, when I came home to Philly, the first thing I noticed when I stepped off the plane, the air stunk, because I had been breathing a different quality of air, right? And I came from a place that had oil refineries and cow farms, and still the air was cleaner.
It's rough up here, bro.
It's really rough up here. Carter and Sanborn, who were my favorite morning duo growing up, they had a song called It Always Stinks in Southwest Philadelphia. There's a reason, right? So again, look at what they're doing outside of the airport. Look how they're building up. They're putting factories all over this place, right? Look at 3 Mile Island. There's a documentary on Netflix, right? I was born in 3 Mile Island. I don't know nothing about it, because I grew up in Philly. I was conceived in Philly. I'm a Philly kid. But 3 Mile Island was a nuclear power plant that almost caused another nuclear holocaust. Like, at some point, we got to be educated. And the thing of it is, in an information age, you cannot tell me you didn't know or you didn't have access to the information. You didn't care, because you damn sure can find out who Blueface is fucking. You damn sure can find out everything you want to find out. You are willfully ignorant because with great understanding, forget power, with great understanding comes culpability. And you don't want none of that. You don't want culpability or accountability. You know what you want to be like, damn, that's a shame, man. Somebody got to do something about the environment. You didn't care. You didn't go lobbying Trump when he pulled away from those environmental accords. Where were you then?
Because the thing I'm very concerned about is that we have like an asthma crisis
Mm-hmm.
in certain demographics,
Certainly.
and it seems like it's going to get worse
Mm-hmm.
because any type of uh, limitations that were forced on certain companies
Mm-hmm.
are going to be lifted, and it's just going to be harsher for those who breathe in these chemicals. You know.
Loss of revenue, loss of blood. We ain't willing to do either, let alone both. At what point don't you realize that? Okay. Do you know my favorite line in the Temptations movie?
I want to hear this.
Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. Meaning, no one's coming down from on high to save you.
Right.
No one's coming to fix your situation for you. That's why people look at you and they laugh at you. They know they can hype you up and get you caught up on things, right? You had a woman who got appointed to be the Democratic nominee. You had a woman who did not run for president. She was appointed the Democratic nominee. Not only that, y'all can sit up here and say you really wanted a woman president, but I call bullshit. And the reason I call bullshit, because unlike you, I actually donated to her when she was running. She ain't make it to Iowa. She dropped out. And you know what she said the main reason why she dropped out was? She didn't get enough financial support from the electorate. So if you wanted one, since we're all big on ski-wee perm and symbolism, then explain to me why you didn't put no money behind her the first time. Then, you so concerned about policies? You concerned about the environment? Then why did you let her go 40 days without putting up policies? And then when she put up policies, they were literally copy and pasted from the Biden policies. And before you said she didn't have enough time to do that, the day after, the Monday morning after Joe Biden said at 1:45 p.m. in the afternoon that he was not going to seek re-election, they turned JoeBiden.com and the KamalaHarris.com, had the merch ready to go, everything from t-shirts to sweatshirts to cups to koozies, but you didn't have enough time for a policy you were just going to copy and paste 40 days later? Then you didn't let her take any interviews. So where was your concern then? Oh, because you liked her. Because again, we want equity. We don't want equality. You don't care unless somebody tells you to care. Just like every February, you'll sit up here and talk about Trayvon and not mention him again. Every August, you'll talk about Mike Brown and not mention him again. Hold on. Middle age is kicking in. Did Tamir Rice's mom get a dime from Black Lives Matter? Did she? No. The answer is no. Did George Floyd's family get a dime from Black Lives Matter? The answer is no. But when people tried to tell you it was a grift and a hustle, and they told you that their main thing was to dismantle the patriarchy and put people from the Rainbow Mafia in positions of power, but we got some murals in the streets. You only care when they tell you to. You don't care bad enough to do anything about it. You're like a dog on a porch. All you do is moan and groan. You ain't gonna get up off that porch.
I like that. You only care when they tell you to care.
That's the only time you're outraged. Explain to me.
Selective outrage.
It's very selective, and it's always been selective Negro outrage. It's always been that way. And if you think I'm lying, stop me. Time to go to work, make the block bump. Boys in the hood call me Black Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was such a... Okay. Do you consider Mike Tyson an idiot?
I actually don't.
Do you consider Magic Johnson an idiot?
Not at all.
Okay.
Because I'd agree with what they do, but I can't say intellectual. I think they're very brilliant.
Okay. So because Magic Johnson is the reason that Starbucks is a multi-billion-dollar global corporation, because when the guy who created Starbucks had it, he then bought Magic out of the shares that Magic had, because Magic's way of doing it was better. Magic Johnson is the only franchisee in TGI Fridays history to have his name on TGI Fridays. It says Magic Johnson's TGI Fridays. That don't happen no place else, right? You mean to tell me that Magic Johnson is so smart to do all that, but he's so dumb he's going to hang out with a racist? Was Oprah dumb when she was hanging out with that racist? Was Whoopi Goldberg dumb when she was hanging out with that racist? So when did he become a racist? When they told you he was. Was he a racist? And was he a problem for Hillary Clinton when he stood up at Chelsea Clinton's wedding? When he was golfing with Bill Clinton for years? Make it make sense. Oh, and again, this is not me advocating for Donald Trump, but I need to give you an example that you cannot You cannot argue. People are upset because Donald Trump's a racist because he took out an $85,000 ad in the newspapers against the Exonerated Five, formerly known as the Central Park Five. Right? That's a problem. That's problematic because he said they needed to get the death penalty. You know what everybody leaves out of that conversation? Two things. The first is all we had was the information that was being presented to us on the news
at the time.
And at the time, all that information said that we got them. We got these kids. They ain't say nothing about rounding them up or how they rounded them up or this, that, and the third. They sat up there and they present. Go look at forget me. Go look at Ava DuVernay's Netflix movie. Go look at all the documentaries made about these guys. Now, here's the gag. At the time when Donald Trump did that, he was a registered Democrat. Not only that, he was a private citizen. Not only that, the district attorney, the assistant district attorney, the chief of police, the mayor, all of them happened to be Democrats. But that didn't stop anybody from dealing with the fact that they paraded them brothers up on that stage at the DNC in 2024 like, oh, Donald Trump's the problem. Oh, but I didn't hear any of them issue an apology for what they did to railroad those boys for a decade and some change. How does that make sense? So again, when you're told that Orange Man is bad, but you're not told that all these blue people who sat up there, who set these black and brown, because there were black people and brown people in that Central Park Five. That's the only way I'm using that term, because I'm black people first. Everybody else holds your own nuts. But black and brown, when it comes to these five boys, you have no smoke for them. Matter of fact, one of the assistant prosecutor is still a huge donator, a huge donor to the Democratic National Convention, the Democratic National Committee. So I'm trying to understand how that makes sense. And then, by the way, where's all your smoke for these corporations that were buying $1 million suites at the DNC? You care about black life so much. Why were you okay with them having abortion mobiles a block away from the Democratic National Convention? If we're going to talk about preserving life, if we're going to talk about racism, we're going to talk about systemic things, you have to talk about it regardless of who you like or who has the best PR or who says the things you don't like. That's my issue. Y'all know for a fact Joe Biden was a racist, always been a racist. And the only reason he was vice president under Obama is because they wanted to balance the ticket. So if you put a Negro in there, let's make sure we put somebody who was mentored by Strom Thurmond, who eulogized Robert Byrd, who was an exalted Cyclops in the Klan. Oh, you mean the guy who said that Barack Obama was a, what was the word? Oh, the first mainstream, clean, articulate black person? Excuse me? That was okay? Oh, you can't get a Dunkin' Donut unless you got a little Indian in you. He said that. You're okay with that. You're okay with Hillary Clinton being a Goldwater girl, who was a card-carrying racist and segregationist, who also said, we need to bring them to heel. Them meaning you and me, because we were teenagers at the time when she said that, and she was the first lady. So is racism a problem, or is racism with the right amount of PR a problem? And the wrong type of PR, not a problem. I'm trying to understand, when are you not activated? When is it just, hey, this is wrong and it needs to be wrong? Oh, but he apologized for it. Yeah, but his apology don't do nothing for the 30 plus years of racist policies that have affected us. But then again, when you got somebody creating a First Step Act, getting these people out for nonviolent drug offenses, you got Kim Kardashian. And I can't stand Kim Kardashian neither. You got her advocating for more black people than I see black people are advocating for black people. Not making a bunch of noise on the Senate floor. Not pontificating on somebody's podcast. Literally taking their time, money, energy, and efforts and putting it out there. So I'm trying to understand, when is it enough that we hold everybody accountable, not the people they just tell you to like? When do you do that exam? Oh, you won't, because then we go back to great power and great culpability. Because again, you only want to be responsible for the things that make you happy.
I had a conversation with my brother recently, right? Mm-hmm. About the black church and how they dropped the ball. Yeah. The conversation started because we were talking about the decline or the extinction of R&B. Mm-hmm. Because we were saying how when the church was very powerful, mm-hmm. that environment produced a lot of singers.
Certainly.
It seemed like singing has declined tremendously.
Sure.
More, I'm not saying there's singers not there. I want to be clear.
Certainly.
In regards, you get what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely.
So, in regards to the modern church, right, there are a lot of criticisms, but one of the biggest criticism I have is that They have totally dropped the ball of providing services to the population that they have so they can thrive in this modern environment.
The reason I pause is 'cause I'm trying to figure out why would they? They making plenty of money.
Still, you think they making money?
You can run the numbers. The black church on average every Sunday pulls in $33 million in this country.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Do the math.
Non-profit.
Yeah, you ain't paying no taxes on that. Why do I need to boost the? Why do I need to boost the?
Why would I have to provide more services?
What services you want to provide? First of all, don't they give away bikes every Christmas? Don't they give out haircuts for back to school? Don't they have a job fair to give people some good old dead end jobs and they're going to maximize their skills or get them out of their condition? What do they need to do? Listen, the only untouched buildings in the hood are the liquor stores, the smoke shops, and the churches. All three of them are controlled by the government. Before you said, well, the church is separate from the government because the separation. Faith-based initiatives, numbnuts, look it up. So you're making $33 million a week on average. And I know somebody's like, well, my church doesn't do that. And I got Reverend Dr. Dufunny. Reverend Dr. Dufunny is the exception and not the rule. The black church has not been held accountable at all. Have you ever been swallowed up? Missed me with that, right? And when I say that, I'm not just talking about, Jakes or, Jamal Bryant or any of these other mega church pastors. I think, Bishop Walker at Mount Zion does a lot of good, but there's still a discrepancy between the amount of good that they do and the impact it has had on our community. For the past 60 years, name something major the black church has done that has impacted our community. Because we still got the hood, don't we?
In a negative way or in a positive?
Positive. I only care about positives. We already know what the negatives are. You can't. Because by and large, there's not much. Oh, they've got some after school programs. Oh, to teach them to make sure that they absorb the indoctrination? Yeah, that's cool. Like every once in a while, you'll see somebody give away a card of Sister Dufunny who's been giving her last to every Sunday for the past 53 years. By the way, do you know why there's been a mass exodus of black men in the black church? Because we're in on the hustle. We already know what the hustle is. We've seen this play. You're not going to run that on us. Not to mention, ain't no man worth his salt going to sit up here and allow you to elevate some pastor to God status over them. No. And that's the thing. You've got a set of congregations out here that are creating a bunch of weak beta male simp mangina soy boys.
You know what I always found interesting when I went to church is that, like, I'm not sure if I was reading the Bible wrong. I always saw Jesus as a very fierce, militant, courageous character.
Mm-hmm.
But the church people I were around, like, had zero confidence. And, like, they didn't really accomplish much. They didn't have any fight to them. In the sense that, like, you figure if God God abides in you, you would have the most courage out here and you'd be doing the most things.
See, here's your problem. Y'all love overlooking the obvious, because when I tell you this, then you're going to get mad at me, and I apologize for you people in the comments who are about to say, I don't like what you said. It's not true. Most of you don't read your Bible. Spirit of fear is not of Christ. Point blank and period. When the Romans came to arrest Jesus, Jesus told Peter and them to put down their swords.
Facts.
That means everybody around Jesus was armed. Let that sink in. Oh, no, but y'all want gun control because we need the bad guns off the street. Let me explain something to you how crime works. Because I know most of you sit there in your cornball ivory towers. Even if you're poor, you still sit in your cornball ivory towers and not know how the real world works. Okay? So in the real world, when you put out a law, people will obey the law. Right? So if we put out a law where they're going to take your guns or tell you can't have this type of gun, you can't have an AR-15, the ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, law-abiding citizens will abide by that law. Okay? So if law-abiding citizens are abiding by that law, and we know that the police are a reactionary force. If this was the comic books, they would be the Avengers, not the Prevengers. My favorite show is the first 48. You know what has to happen for the first 48 to start? Somebody got to die first.
Facts.
And then we call 911. So we also know that criminals are criminals because they disobey the law. But y'all love criminals. That's why y'all fighting so hard for migrants, but not fighting so hard for your own rights. So if the criminals have the automatic weapons and the semi-automatic weapons, and the cops, who are always late to the party, have the weapons, I'm subject to whether or not these criminals are going to get me. And I'm also subject to the fact that I know that this reactionary force ain't going to get there in time.
No time soon.
So you do realize that if the church doesn't make you a chicken shit, school has made you a chicken shit, the news has made you a chicken shit. You don't train. You don't work out. The only time I see you working out is after you didn't have your tummy tuck, your BBL, whatever the case may be. Or you're working out because you want a thirst trap. You're not working out to actually work out. And if I'm lying, then you have to explain to me why Planet Fitness on average has 10,000 members per unit. And not one Planet Fitness on earth can hold 10,000 people at a time. It's a mathematical impossibility. But you say you want to work out. You say you want to fight. You say you want to resist. Then why is it there's not a school board, a city council, a mayor's office, a governor, a state rep that fears the black church? Not near. When the last time you said, oh, Al Sharpton's coming? Ooh. Ain't nobody scared of Jakes. Ain't nobody scared of Jamal. And that's no diss. I'm just stating facts.
What do you think the future, especially with this younger generation, what do you think the future of the black church is?
It's going to stay exactly how it is.
You think so?
Show me the change agents from a groundswell perspective. What do you think is going to change that hasn't changed in 60 years? To put that another way, they got rid of the last change agent in church. Do you know who Vernon Johns is? Of course you don't. There was a church in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about this. There was a church in Atlanta, and this guy, black man, large, booming black man, he was bucking the system. He was stomping out racism. He was taking on racist cops. He was using the land of the church to create an environment where black people could sell their wares amongst other black people, aka group economics, the thing you say you want, but don't want to do some 60 some odd years later. He was doing all of that. And you know what the board of the church did?
Shut that down.
They shut it down. They fired that man. They erased him from the annals of history, and they replaced him with a young, aged teenager by the name of Martin Luther King Jr., who they could mold. And this is not taking anything away from the great legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., not at all. I'm just stating facts. They found somebody they could mold who wasn't going to be such a rabble-rouser, who they could, turn up in a way that would not cost, we don't want none of that. And even then that backfired because King was public enemy number one at one point by a closeted black J. Edgar Hoover. So yeah, you don't want change. No one looks at the church and says, this is an instrument of change. The only religious organization that anybody fears that's black is the Nation of Islam.
I wanted to jump back, right, in regards to the future of the church. Now, we did have a mass exodus of black males, right? I'm not sure if that happened with women, but that's a possibility. I wanted to go back into church culture. It seems like pastors that are progressive, as you would say, that actually implement stuff, challenge people, and hold people accountable, their building is empty. And it seems that people they just want an escape. And they want something where like everything will be handled. I don't want anything to do with it. Yeah. Let me pray, let me fix it. And I think that's the problem pastors run into, actually try to teach and hold people accountable.
Yeah, the thing of it is, that's all it's been taught, right? So here's the thing. You can't find a miracle that Jesus did not require some audience participation. Pick up your bed and walk. Bring me those barrels and fill them up with water. Wine.
Say that again. I like to say that again for those listening.
So you can't find a miracle that Jesus did that did not first require some audience participation. He said, pick up your bed and walk. He said, fill those barrels up so I can turn them into wine. He was late. Lazarus died. His friend Lazarus died. They sent for Jesus. Jesus was late. by a few days, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have my Bible right in front of me, but I'm doing more than your pastor does on Sunday, so bear with me respectfully. And he said, Lazarus, come out. When Jesus appeared on the water, he called Peter, his chief disciple, said, walk out to me. And Peter realized he's walking on water. The second he looked away from Jesus, he started to sink. The second you take your eyes off of God, you start to sink. So you show me. The church is so corrupt. The black church is so corrupt and is so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good, that they will shun a girl. They're so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good, that they will shun a girl who winds up being an unwed teenage mother, not recognizing the fact that the mother of their Lord and Savior was an unwed teenage mother. Let it sink in. You have issue with people who were once criminals, but the truth of them, convicted felons. Y'all hate convicted felons. This person's a convicted felon. Oh, he can't come in here. Look what he did. Oh, wait. Wasn't your Lord and Savior a convicted felon? Was he not arrested, tried, convicted, put up for parole, and then executed by the state? Doesn't that make him a criminal? Doesn't that make him a convicted felon? So the deity you say you worship is all the things you shun. By the way, he put government in his place. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. You won't even go into church and say, listen, why you got a collection for a building fund and everything in this building is clean and pristine? Why you got an ATM 10 feet away from the sanctuary, but you won't go in there and turn that ATM over, bust it up with some axes and say, you turn my father's house into a den of thieves, but Jesus would. See, y'all love saying, what would Jesus do? And you got your little bracelets and whatnot, like you're some type of Lance Armstrong, Livestrong reject with your daggone bracelets. And you love the show. You love the choir, right? You so busy talking about, oh, well, somebody got a little sugar in his tank, but so does your choir director, and you say nothing. Like, you're a bunch of hypocrites that wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight. Jesus would be ashamed of you if he was walking around here. And you can tell. Because the truth of the matter is, you don't want to cause a scene. You have become modern day Pharisees. You are the most lukewarm group of people who say you believe so much. Even God said, you are neither hot nor cold. You are lukewarm, so I spew you from my mouth. And you wonder why our community's in the shape that it's in. You keep going to a church that makes you feel good. You're not going to a church that's holding you accountable. And you're not demanding from that church anything. Matter of fact, you should be demanding from the black church the same thing you should be demanding from the Chinese laundry. You should be demanding from the Korean nail shop. You should be demanding from the Indian Dunkin' Donuts and everybody else who comes into your community that has convinced you that there's no money in the hood, but there's a bunch of people starting businesses in the hood. At some point, you got to realize that you won't hold them accountable to do anything for your community because you're too chicken shit. So please miss me with, oh, well, why won't they why won't they fight? Why would they? All the fight's been taken out of them. It's been indoctrinated right on out of them.
Your thoughts about Christmas, parents being under pressure, right, to buy items for their children for Christmas that they can't afford? You can do the consumer aspect, and also if you want to touch on the theological aspect.
Right. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son so that we would not perish but have everlasting life. It's John 3:16. Jesus was God's gift to the world. And so we celebrate the birth of Christ by giving gifts. We've lost that. The same way they have commercialized Juneteenth, they've commercialized the Christ Mass, which is what it's supposed to be, but most of us don't even go and worship. There is an exorbitant amount of pressure because you don't want your kids to be without. My whole thing is Christmas should just be another day, especially in a society that has gifts popping up magically on your doorstep every single day via Amazon. If anything, Jeff Bezos is as close to Santa Claus as you'll ever get. So if you fall victim to that and you can't realize that the greatest gift is life and having a loving family, then you are spiritually poor, you're barren, and you've just done exactly what society has conditioned you to do. You've become a consumer that does not produce anything other than a bunch of stress, worry, and angst trying to buy some stuff that doesn't make no sense. And this has been happening for as long as I can remember.
And sorry to cut you, man, but the thing I really observe is that teaching the child about teaching the child to be an efficient consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Like we as adults don't acknowledge how we teach our children this consumption behavior
Mm-hmm.
that we struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
and it's detrimental to them.
Here's where I don't like most people who parent, and I'm not saying I'm not guilty of it. I'm not saying my wife's not guilty of it. Here's what I am saying. My wife and I do not complain about the fact that my kid spends a lot of time on a screen. You want to know why? Who supplied it? We did. iPhone, iPad, iPod, I paid. You are the supplier of the dopamine hits that your kids are addicted to. However, ask me the last 5 books my daughter read. World of difference, right? So if you want the cure, you also have to deal with the poison. If you don't like the drug, then you need to deal with the dealer. And unfortunately, the dealer exists in your mirror. So again, you're not ready to have that conversation because that conversation comes with a certain amount of accountability. No, ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis. Ain't nobody coming to save you. You want your kids to be better. You want them to be more well-rounded. You want them to participate in understanding how dollars work. Get their asses up and make them do chores. Listen, I used to pray for a snowstorm. You know why? Because everybody in my neighborhood didn't want to go out there and shovel. So I would clean up. I asked my mom for $5 to get a bag of rock salt, and then I'm charging everybody $5 extra to salt their walk after I shovel it. I come home with a knot this fat, after 6 hours of shoveling walks and salting down grounds. You're not teaching them to hunt. You're making them weak. You are the reason that the society is so apathetic. You're the reason that people can come over here and we're going to have an internal 9/11. Because ain't nobody fearing us. You spending so much time telling people they got to be body positive. Oh, that went out the window because Lizzo's getting in shape now, boo-boo cakes. Yo, you want to have a well-rounded kid? Make sure they exercise. Make sure they read. Make sure that they drink water. Make sure that they're eating actual fruit. Make sure that they are kind to people who can't do anything for them. And they want more for others than they want for themselves. It's not easy to do, but it's a simple process. That's it. I think the commercial pressures of Christmas are always going to be there as long as we continue to accept the fact that people tell us. It used to just be Black Friday. Now it's Thursday, Thanksgiving Thursday at 6, they're having the first sales. Then Black Friday wasn't enough. Then we got Small Business Saturday. Then we got Cyber Monday.
I didn't even know about Small Business Saturday.
Yeah, of course you don't, because nobody wants to promote Small Business Saturday because God forbid you support a small black business. You got Cyber Monday, and then to assuage your guilt, they got Giving Tuesday.
That's new too. I wasn't aware of that one either.
No, that one's been around as long as Cyber Monday has. See what I mean?
That's crazy.
They have the things there, but they're not promoting them. It's like, again, the outrage is only there when they tell you to be outraged.